Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Looks Like We Made It. I'm Izzy Howell and I'm joined by my dad Chris to talk all things video marketing. We are the father and daughter who run the fabulous video production company Howell Film, and each week we will be discussing everything like what happens behind the scenes on our projects, getting results from your video content, how to start using video in your business, and plenty more to come.
We'll be joined by some wonderful special guests, including our own awesome clients from all kinds of industries, as well as our own film crew and even our own family, to candidly converse about creativity.
On this episode, we are answering the question, how can video on my website add value? And to help us answer this question, well, I'm joined by the best web designer I know.
Oh, don't say that.
So without further ado, let's get started. And of course, never miss an episode every Tuesday by giving us a follow or subscribe, as well as finding Howell Film on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Let's go. So the question is, how can video on my website add value? And I can't think of a better person to answer this question than you. And why is that?
On and off, I've been a designer, web developer, graphic designer for about 100 years. So on that basis, I literally I've seen them come and I've seen them go. So basically, why would it add value to your business? Does it add value to your website? Does it add value to your business, or does it add value generally? The answer is yes. I think the simple answer is video is not going away. It's not a flash in the pan. It's not something that came and didn't work out. It's the future. I think it's going to be increasingly the future, and I think people's expectations now when they go online is that video is going to be there. And you go on a website there's very few websites that's just text these days, but you go on a flat, dull, non-intuitive website and you are instinctively looking for video. And I think as well that even a photograph now, if it's not backed up but with a play button, it kind of feels a bit jaded, a bit sort of slow, and a bit sort of not current. In terms of why you should do it, for any commercial organisation, you're 53 times more likely to appear on Google if you have video embedded on your website.
And that's the top of Google, literally.
That's literally. I mean, Google will try and deliver video content first. Deep in the algorithm, it will try and give you, video content first if it can. So I think that in a nutshell, it's more interesting, it's more engaging, it's more shareable. It's becoming increasingly expected, and you'll get loads more eyeballs on your website.
So how can someone who, say they've either got a video produced, maybe like a promo, a 2 or 3 minute promo, or they're thinking of doing that to go on their website, how can they use that to make sure people watch it? Because I know it can break our hearts when we go on a website and we see a film at the very, very bottom of the page, or on a page no one goes on. How can people make sure that video does what it's meant to do?
I think positioning is really important. So even something as simple as if you've got a film, if it's just a kind of like an opener, a kind of a landing page type film. Well, by definition, you need to have it somewhere near the top. I really don't like auto-playing films with sound on them. I don't mind an auto-playing film if it's sound, if the sound's muted or whatever. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to be blasted out of my seat by some film I didn't ask to watch. But then obviously if it's related to an article, if it's related to perhaps a blog post or related to a feature on a website, then there's also the opportunity to put the video within the context of the article. So you might pepper a few pictures in there, but as you read down, you can put a pertinent bit of video at that point in the article where it makes sense. And that's a lot more fast. That's a lot more fast paced than the sort of the generic here's a landing video or whatever. And I suppose the third option is social media video embedded within your website as well. So you can put a little snippet of code into your website, which will pull in perhaps what you're doing on Twitter or Facebook or wherever, and that will then be available to watch on your website without spearing your user off to another platform directly. So that's a good tool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that any opportunity for people to experience your business and what it is you offer and meet you without actually properly meeting you yet is an amazing tool.
100%. I mean, websites. It's still an important and often a little bit overlooked these days. A lot of people just say, "Oh, well, I'll just have a social media presence." But I think as a credibility exercise for an organisation, I think a website is still a really, really powerful tool. And also, I think that you've got a captive audience, and obviously you need to keep them there and engage them there and keep them coming back as well. That's another aspect to this. That there's no point doing a website, leaving it, and it just sits there. It's like any tool. It's got to work for you. Otherwise, it's just a dumb instrument. So I'd always advise people to keep the content fresh, keep the keep what you're saying as being relevant. There's nothing more depressing than linking to a website and last article April 2014. You think, oh blimey, that's a fairly.
Well, you think they've vanished, don't you? That's
yeah. But also you can gather lots of information from your website. You can learn a lot about traffic, and there's all sorts of weird and wonderful tools at your disposal. Google Analytics is the one that everyone knows about, and you can really get a sense of kind of what your website's doing for you.
Do you remember the first year the year you first made a website?
Yes, I do. Well, kind of the first decade maybe. That would be kind of early to mid 1990s.
The old boxy white computers.
Yeah, the old computers. I mean, it's nothing like it is now. I mean, a website was really kind of like a living leaflet back in the day. It's almost like you had your you kind of had your little brochure, your A5 leaflets or whatever, and then you'd have a website, and your website would typically just contain the same stuff as your brochure. So it'd be sort of like phone numbers and a bit about the business.
Quite basic information.
Yeah, and websites back in the day, they were more, again, a real blunt instrument. And people's expectations were basically zero. Their expectations were, hey, we can find out a bit about these people, we can ring them up, and that's it. And then I suppose forms came along, and pictures were very. You had to use your pictures very carefully.
Did they slowly load?
Yeah, they slowly load. There's all kind of dial-up connections and all that sort of stuff. So, in a way, the landscape is nothing like that. It's like it's proper chalk and cheese, because there isn't. The only thing now is that I suppose that there was a retro element. Sorry about that. there's a retro element to that kind of the old websites now.
I saw that. Have you seen the Space Jam website that they kept? So Space Jam kept the original website intact. So you can, if you type in Space Jam, I'll find the actual thing. It'll just come up as if it was a website from the 90s.
And you'll find it's very tiny. Because that's the other thing as well, is because obviously screens were smaller, resolutions were much, much, much lower.
A lot less power.
And then, of course, once we stumbled upon the power of the GIF, that was incredible. That's where you could have a flashing red and yellow background, and you could do stuff in a very pixelated, horrible way, but you could make things move, and that was kind of freaking people out. That was like real space age stuff.
But it was still playable content or moving content.
It was moving content, playable content, and it did a job. I think there was a definite. I think once kind of the infrastructure caught up with the ambition. So what I mean by that is once broadband started to become not just rubbish and started to become a proper workable tool, and that pace really, the infrastructure started to be able to deliver content properly, then all these kind of pent-up designers that wished they could have done something, and all these web developers that really wished, gosh, it'd be great if we could deliver this content, they were almost let loose then. And I think there was a real explosion kind of in the early 2000s where content really was king, and you really could drive content to the user. And you were really pushing content then as well, because before it was almost kind of, you'd go looking to a point, but you kind of knew who you were looking for. Whereas now it's more about intuitive delivery of content based on, a kind of weird and wonderful search criteria or habits or all sorts of deeper, far more, really deep algorithmic.
It's incredibly
projects.
technical, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's mad. And then the other thing now, of course, which is amazing, is there's any number of these sort of do-it-yourself website builders, and I probably shouldn't say this because all my colleagues in the graphic design and the web development world are sort of throwing their hands up in horror. But you can make a nice site on any one of these kind of pay monthly. Some of them are free, drag and drop, and they do a job. And I don't dismiss them at all. I think it's great to let people get going on websites and experiment and do it themselves. It's brilliant.
Absolutely. I think as well that what you've been able to see, which is really incredible, is that you've seen the full real evolution of websites and how they function and how the internet functions essentially. Because do you think there was a point that, I know we've been making videos for a few years, but was there a point earlier on where video started to become more prolific, or what do you think that's alongside the social media revolution?
Yeah, I think that the explosion of video online ran in tandem between, as I mentioned, the physical ability for phones played a huge role as well. Obviously, in 2007, 2008, when the iPhone was launched, that notion of a computer in your pocket was a reality. Whereas prior to that, it was always a bit, breeze blocks size laptops, and it was never quite a thing. And I think actually it was probably three things running in tandem, which is probably the smartphone revolution, the social media revolution, and, as I say, the technology that allows content to be properly delivered. I mean, I remember in the day, as you say, you'd sit and wait for an image line by line. When you watch a video online back in the day, you literally have to go and make a cup of tea and then you come back and your 30 seconds of video would be there. I mean, there's another aspect here though, is that in an increasingly busy, mad world of being bombarded from every point. With video and all, content like, it's literally content. We're drowning in content, which is why I actually believe there is almost like a renewed benefit of a website, like I said at the beginning, because you've got for a second or two you have a captive audience.
Yeah, it's a safe space.
Yes, Whereas online, in a social media setting, you're in the melee, you're in the mix with everybody else and whatever content anybody wants to throw at you.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's on your own website, you've got a fighting chance to manage that experience a bit better, and tailor that experience to what you really want the user to see and do. So I mean, websites are great. but they need to do a job, because obviously if you just go on for the sake of it, you may as well not bother.
Well, I find that, I mean, I don't know if it's because I work in film, but I do genuinely acknowledge when a website has a film. Like if we're looking at a website for a restaurant or something, and I see they've got a video, and it excites me a little, because I can watch it, and actually you can see what the process is, or what you can expect, and it offers a level of, these people are legit, they've got a real thing, they've got a real system, they've got real people doing this thing, and it makes you buy into that concept of what they're offering a lot more. But so if someone was considering having video on their website, or has a video to put on there, or whatever it may be, because there's a lot of, as we've discovered, a lot of different ways you can embed them on there, and have them as on like a platform on your website. What's your favorite like viewing platform to put on your website, whether it's YouTube, Vimeo, Wistia? There's so many out there.
Yeah, I mean, well, you can't ignore YouTube, because it's just like ignoring, the ultimate elephant in the room. It's like a room full of elephants. Yeah, I mean, you can't. They all do a job. I mean, I suppose you've got to be aware that there's no such thing as actually really genuinely free anything. So if it's a free account, there's going to be adverts involved. You may or may not have some control over those adverts, but it's a bit weird sometimes when you've got embedded content, YouTube content on your website, and then there could be a situation where adverts are delivered to the user as well. Any paid service, you can manage that, and they're not expensive. I like Vimeo because I think it's kind of like a quite neat. You can a neat tool to use. It's intuitive, and you can edit the color of the players. You can edit the style of the players. You can do quite a lot. You can tailor it quite nicely to your own platform. But I mean, I think what people should do is always use a third-party host to host their video content. Because generally speaking, I mean, with a caveat, unless you've got a massive media server and you're in the media game and you can deliver huge amounts of media content, generally speaking, if you start actually trying to host huge video files directly on your own server package, generally speaking, you're going to freak out your supplier and it's not going to work, and it's going to be rubbish, and going to fall over, and so in essence, you kind of 99% of use cases, you need to be using some sort of plugin, some sort of third party host for that. I mean, I suppose for a serious business, you do need a paid for service, purely to just have control. Yeah, and it's the data element as well. I think the sort of how. And the other reason video can add value on a website is that it's the data, it's the information you get out of that to, through, if you have something embedded on YouTube or Vimeo, do you get to see the views out of that? They've all got reporting tools. Obviously you don't get that, Mabel from Crawley watched your your film, but you do get a good insight as to kind of what works best for you. What had the most traction. And if people are bailing out of a film, you say, if you've put a 5-minute film on there and there's 3 minutes of waffle, then you learn about kind of editing and self-editing and chopping stuff down. That's where when you have a video on your website, there's that discussion that you'd have of what's the message, what's the audience, and really, as we've said in previous episodes, it always harkens back to what it is you want to achieve, what your narrative is, and to have it, and that helps it blend with the website completely. Like if you had a film on your website, on your landing page, that had a completely different message to the text or the images on your website, they all have to be consistent. They all have to message consistency, brand consistency, message consistency. I've seen this far too often where either you go one of two ways. You kind of knock a website together cheaply by yourself, whatever, and it's a bit a bit homemade, and then you get a professional film done that sticks out like a sore thumb. Or you go the other way, you get a really beautiful, well-crafted, pixel-perfect website, and then you put some old stuff together that you've done yourself on your iPhone, and then that in turn brings the website down. I think the like all these things, the key is to strike a balance and to be consistent. And I think the film element of your website has to be relevant to what it is you're trying to portray. So as an example, if it's kind of a how-to and the expectation is that it doesn't need to be a mega super expensive video production, and actually somebody going, well, do this, and you don't mind that it's a phone because it's kind of like an instructional thing, or it's a kind of like a throwaway thing. That's fine. But then equally, what you don't want is the actual sort of message and the core deliverable for your business being some homemade ropey old film. So like all these things, it's got to fit for it to make sense and for it to work for the viewer.
Absolutely. I think last but not least, my question is how comfortable, generally speaking, are website designers when you're approached by someone, say you manage their website for them or something, and they say, I've got a batch of videos, I want this on here. How easy is that a process normally for website designers to do? Because some people might feel like they don't want to, if it's a big project or a big job, they don't want to maybe cost this person too much time or cause designers too much pain. How easy is it for designers to actually do this? And for these
well, technically,
yeah.
Well, if they're earning a living as a website developer or a website designer, then they should know what they're doing, and they should be able to embed the video and make it work and make it look pretty and make it do what you want it to do. If they're uncomfortable with that, well, I'd suggest they need a bit of training. And if they're really uncomfortable with that, then they probably shouldn't be in the industry.
Okay, that makes sense. It's because we obviously on our website we have a lot of video on our website because it's what we do, and that's something that you can look at if you wish at www.howellfilm.co.uk.
Blatant plug there.
Yeah, blatant plug, but built by your own fair hand, so you can see what we mean and what we do via our own website. We may as well drop that in there as well. So I'll leave it there today. Question just to round off, because I always ask one of these.
Okay, final question. Go on then.
What's a really famous film that you haven't seen?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
Because there's always an expectation with these sort of cult movies or these big movies or franchises that you've seen them, and sometimes you haven't, or I haven't.
Well, I could give you an example of the only adult. I think I'm the only adult in certainly in the Western world. I've never seen Game of Thrones.
Oh wow!
So in that regard, and I have been to Northern Ireland, and I've actually visited Game of Thrones scenes.
You were on the King's Road.
I was, and I didn't know. I just wondered why there was a load of people in kind of long black coats taking photographs. So on that basis, it probably wouldn't be a film, but it would be that, like I say, I'm the only adult I know who hasn't seen Game of Thrones.
Well, Game of Thrones, I'm marrying someone who's practically George R.R. Martin at this point. He's obsessed with it, but I struggle. I've watched the first 3 seasons and I do enjoy it, and I've read the books, but apparently the 8th season, the final season, is dreadful, and it's torn people apart.
I can't comment. And what I would say is that if this podcast goes towards saying Game of Thrones a lot, we'll probably be like, we'll have to wear like dark glasses and false beards and stuff.
They know how to sword fight, that's the worry.
Yes. So I'm kind of like I can't get into kind of orcs and swords and sort of.
Oh, Lord of the Rings,
brilliant. Yeah, but I can't be doing with it.
No, I can't be doing with it. Okay.
So there you go.
Well, you've
been wrapping this podcast up now for the last 15 minutes.
Well, this is the most interesting part.
Go on then.
For me, the thing I haven't seen are the Harry Potter movies. Not seen them. There's like 25 of them. I've not seen any of them, and I don't really care to. So to all the Harry Potter fans out there, I apologise.
So far we've dissed Game of Thrones and Harry Potter. So that's basically no more listeners.
There'll be some wildlings and Hufflepuffs out there sobbing into their goblets as we speak. Okay, so that was it. Please give us a follow and a subscribe, and keep listening to more content coming your way. Give us a follow at Howell Film on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn, and we'll be back every Tuesday with a brand new episode. And that's it for today. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.